My name is Patel, and I am a pre-physician assistant student. I'm currently in my PA application cycles, but my hobby of creating content on self-improvement, health, and fitness is really growing every single month. I try to pump out videos and Instagram Reels, TikToks, and YouTube Shorts really consistently. And so if you really like the content I'm making, please remember to hit the subscribe button, because I really want to see my first 100 subscribers in under 6 months in 2023. I guarantee that I will be of value. If you have any questions, comment down below and I will be engaging and help you out in any of your matters. And thank you for watching. We have previously talked about how having increased muscle mass increases your metabolism because they are interconnected. If you increase muscle mass, more muscular tissue, the more requirement for glucose and oxygen, the higher the metabolism of the body. And when we take that perspective and take a look at hypothyroidism, resistance training and muscle building really gives an advantage to patients with hypothyroidism. I was reading a research paper, and the paper is named Impact of Aerobic Exercise and Resistance Training on Thyroid-stimulating Hormone in Hypothyroidism. This study was conducted in India in 2020, I believe, and it's basically what the title suggests, that what is the impact of these exercises on the thyroid system. And I'll just get started in explaining this study. So they took 30 people, they were middle-aged, 30 to 40, and they put them under an exercise regime. Now, there were two groups. The first group was aerobic training. The second group was resistance training. Both of them exercised for 50 minutes a day, 5 times a week. The structure of the training was really similar for both groups. 10 minutes warm-up, 50 minutes or 40 minutes of the training session, and then the last minutes that were left, about 10, were given to cool down. The aerobic group did some running or jogging, and the resistance training group did resistance training with resistance bands. And what they wanted to measure was thyroid-stimulating hormone levels pre and post study. So the comparison between the TSH, thyroid-stimulating hormone levels, week 1 versus week 5. They wanted to see what the difference was. At the end of the study, they did statistics, and the result was statistically significant. And they also found that one group had a better advantage or had a greater difference on the levels of TSH. So the results were resistance training and aerobic training increased the activity of the thyroid system positively. And what this means is that the thyroid system was functioning better. The clinical term for this, when you reverse hypothyroidism to a normal thyroid system, is euthyroidism. And that's the balance of hormones required for an adequate thyroid function. So I'll just put up the results on the screen here. And you'll see that for both of the groups, aerobic training and resistance training, the TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone levels, for pre was greater and post was less, except for an outlier. However, what they found was resistance training was much better than aerobic training when they did a group difference test in statistics, and they found that resistance training is much better than aerobic training. And this is because you are just stimulating your muscles to the point where the demand for those muscles to increase the metabolic rate is so high. And so it's in the body's benefit to increase their metabolism, even their with their thyroid system. And this is really essential to highlight because two things. I want to point out two things here. They use middle-aged people. So many people, I know a couple people around me who have hypothyroidism, and they took middle-aged people in this study. They saw incredible benefits of resistance training and aerobic training. I'm just going to talk about resistance training because I think resistance training they showed that it's much better than aerobic training. It's really critical to point out because when people get older, they have a lot of responsibility. They have kids, this and that, they have work, and they kind of lose that motivation to work out. In fact, they should have the opposite motivation. They should actually go and resistance train because that is what they should do so they could prevent this. And even folks with no thyroid problem, I'm going to talk about resistance training always, how it really will influence all your endocrine system positively. And so this is really critical to highlight because even with middle-aged people, you see this much improvement in your thyroid system. And so just imagine what would happen if a person in their 20s is doing resistance training. Second thing I want to point out is the method of training itself. They just use resistance bands. And using resistance bands is not that difficult. Even at a lower threshold of training and effort, you can see a lot of improvements in your thyroid system. This is really incredible because this means that you can do resistance training at your own home. You can look up YouTube videos or follow certain videos, instructional and those workout videos that you can find online, and really do your stuff at home. You don't even have to have a gym membership. This is so accessible. Like, resistant bands are more accessible to weights. They're so not hard to carry around. You can do it anywhere. Like, I could get started right here because I have resistance bands in my house. That is the reason why this study is really golden, because it checks two boxes, two big problems and two big obstacles. It really clears those problems and barriers. So anyone who is having symptoms of hypothyroidism or have thyroidism, like, really can benefit, even if they're like middle-aged or even have like minimal workout equipment. So muscle mass and resistance training are really good for your thyroid system. You might be wondering, if you stayed until this point of the video, you might be wondering, how does this happen? And that is exactly what we're going to talk about before ending in this video. The science of this, the science of this study. This all starts with a brain structure called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. The suprachiasmatic nucleus, again, I've talked about this in my earlier videos, in my sunlight video, that receives the signal to set your circadian rhythm. It activates and releases chemicals in response to sunlight. The timing of the release of thyroid hormone from your thyroid gland is also decided upon the activation of the suprachiasmatic nucleus. So whenever there's a requirement for the thyroid hormone, suprachiasmatic nucleus will send signals to the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus will send signals to the anterior pituitary via a hormone called thyrotropin releasing hormone. Then the thyrotropin releasing hormone, TRH, will ultimately stimulate the anterior pituitary. Upon receiving TRH, will release what is called TSH, thyroid-stimulating hormone. That is that hormone that the researchers that we just talked about used to measure thyroid-stimulating hormone. Then the TSH then goes and stimulates the thyroid gland, and then the thyroid gland produces triiodothyronine and tetraiodothyronine, T3 and T4. T4 is less active, T3 is more active, and both of them have 4 general effects on your body. First is metabolism, second is brain health, third is bone health, and fourth is body temperature regulation. We're just going to talk about metabolism in this video because that's crucial when we have to talk about these thyroid problems. The thyroid hormone has the ability to increase your basal metabolic rate. Basal metabolic rate is the metabolic rate at which you burn calories in the resting state. And the cellular mechanism is increasing the production of ATP. And I can research and go into a lot of this cellular biology, but the gist of it is just increasing the ATP because it has the ability to really directly influence your genes to produce certain proteins that help in the cellular respiration process. This increases the demand for oxygen, your breathing goes up, and then some of the other proteins too help increase ATP synthesis at the end of the electron transport chain. So a lot of it's really cellular, but holistic in the most objective way, it increases ATP production. In the muscles, the thyroid hormone has the ability to break down ATP at a faster rate because the muscles, when you look at the cellular anatomy of the muscles, you have actin and myosin, and to really move those protein structures, you need breakdown of ATP. And in muscles, ATP is really used so much, and so the demand for ATP then increases. Thyroid helps make more ATP. And lastly, ATP is also used in restoring some of these ion gradients. So one of the key examples, and when I was in college, was we always talked about the sodium-potassium pump. And sodium-potassium pump is really an essential kind of a structure on your cell membrane that restores ion gradients like sodium and potassium. So that pump, the sodium-potassium pump, has the ability to kind of maintain and restore sodium and potassium in your cells. But it requires ATP because it's an active transport. And thyroid really helps do that really efficiently. It uses up ATP and then helps restore ion gradients. So one last point I really want to make is the thyroid system, or any of the endocrine system, there is a step-by-step process of releasing hormones. So like the anterior pituitary will release the thyroid-stimulating hormone that will impact the thyroid gland to make triiodothyronine, T3, and it's a very step-by-step process. And when you have a lot of, let's say, T3 and T4, it negatively feedback loops and inhibits TSH, thyroid-stimulating hormone, so that the thyroid gland is not like squeezing out more T3 and T4 because it's not required. That is usually the case in the hyperthyroidism individuals. When a person has hyperthyroidism, TSH levels are down and T3 and T4 levels are up. That is the opposite for hypothyroidism. TSH levels are high and T3 and T4 levels are low. As you saw in the results of the research paper we just discussed at the start of the video, the post-TSH levels were down because in hypothyroidism scenario, they're up. And so pre-TSH levels were high, and then post-TSH levels were low after the patients went through the training of either resistance or aerobic. So that is what the thyroid system is about, and people who have hypothyroidism should really take the advantage of resistance training because they will have increase in their muscle mass and the requirement of ATP will go up. And it's just a really good way to increase and maintain your energy balance in your body. I hope you like this video and catch you in the next one. Thank you for watching.